Hi, I'm Eddie Moretti. Today I'm with Ben Anderson, who's an independent filmmaker of documentaries and a writer. We have a book out right now called No Worse Enemy. Ben has been working with us at Vice for a number of years. He's also been reporting from Afghanistan for a number of years. He was first embedded with British forces around 2007.
Anybody hit? Anyone hit?
But he recently made a trip to Afghanistan in December of 2012. So we're gonna watch Ben's new documentary, which is called This Is What Winning Looks Like. It's a shocking and an eye-opening look at the state of Afghanistan today.
Tonight I can announce that over the next year, another 34,000 American troops will come home from Afghanistan. This drawdown will continue, and by the end of next year, our war in Afghanistan will be over.
Afghan forces defending Afghan people and enabling the government of this country to serve its citizens. This is victory. This is what winning looks like. And we should not shrink from using these words.
You know, over here you've got a PB commander who we know is kidnapping boys and sexually molesting them. So try doing that day in and day out, working with child molesters. It wears on you after a while.
International troops will continue to train, advise, and assist the Afghans and fight alongside them when needed. But we will shift into a support role as Afghans step forward. But we must finish the job we started in Afghanistan and end this war responsibly.
This is what the American military is saying and the American government, but you don't believe it because you've seen to the contrary.
Yeah, and the British and American Marines on the ground don't believe it either. I mean, all it is now is about getting out and saving face.
Yeah, so
and we're not leaving because we've achieved our goals, we're leaving because we've given up on achieving those goals. I think that's the only goal now, is to somehow look good as we pull out. It could even be worse than that, because all the fighting has been to introduce a corrupt, hated and feared government who in some areas make the Taliban look like the good guys. And when you remember that the Taliban were welcomed into power in the mid-90s because they looked like the good, just Muslims in comparison to the warlords, it feels eerily similar today.
Go ahead and give you guys a quick class on hygiene and cleanliness of the PB. A big thing is separating, like where you shower, eat, use the restroom. You want to keep it separate. So if you're eating, where you just showered, where you're using the restroom, you're pretty much just putting all that bacteria you just got rid of, putting it right back on your skin, using your hands to eat, and it's just going right back in your system. It's going to cause sickness, diseases.
دا زموږ خپل کار دی، معنا چې جامع پای کوو موږ ته د مهینو درس راکړه، تورنیکټ درس راکړه. دا سړی چې سرخان ته کښیني لاس پرې وي باره ورته کښیني ورته دا ګرده پوه دي، معنا ګرده د درس یې ویلی میشه ته سوی دی دوستان و دستی بل درس.
Let me explain one more thing, all right? We're taking time out of our lives, the Marines are, okay? Everybody here is taking time out of our lives to come down here, away from our families, to help you guys. We're not here to offend anybody. If we say something that may offend you, you know, we apologize ahead of time. Let us know, and we'll fix it.
Everyone believes that the training is being accelerated now as we leave. The training is almost non-existent now. Most of the forces have pulled back to the main bases, which they never leave. Because, as I say, the people on the ground, I think, have given up on there being any chance of success.
Bondi?
Something an old guy. I think he's living in there.
Hey.
Bondi?
Mr. Wujio. Mr. Wabasi. Bandihana?
Turjuman.
Tarjuman.
Okay.
So they've got 4 secret prisoners who they stuffed in the furthest room and filled the door with sandbags, so they were trying to hide from the Marines.
څنګه دلته دننه کړی یاست؟
How long have they been there?
ولې راوستي یاست؟ طالبان یاست؟
They are?
No, they are not Taliban.
لاسونه بیخي دغه د پړسېدلې
Oh.
Hey. No.
I want you.
He's handcuffed. Okay. Listen, okay. You'll leave us here. This is...
څو نفره؟ Oh, there's 4 guys.
4?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go talk to the PB. Tell them I was going to the bathroom back there and I heard voices back in the corner. Who are those?
اوس وکیل صاحب ما راغوښتي دي هغه سره خپل خبره خلاصه کړه بندیان ما تر څو پورې کښېنولي دي خادواله راویستلي چې ما نه علاقه وایم تر څو پورې چې زه سبا راځم د وطن نه راپورته کړي دي اوس ما دلې خپل دوی بیا یا دغه جرم یې موږ ته نه دی معلوم بالا بس دغه دوی راپورته کړه په لاس یې ماته راکړه ما ورته خوندي کړي دي اوس وکیل صاحب راځي بار یې په لاس ورکوم وکیل نظرګل د خاده سره برای تللي و دا خلک یې راپورته کړل.
Can we see if they're in our system with the eye scan? Can we do the eye scan?
These guys?
Yeah. Can we take them out and see if they're in our system? See if they're...
وای موږ کولای چې دوی په خپل سیستم کې واچو.
یا ورته بندیان ناست تر څو پورې چې مشر رانیسي دغه رسوا نه کړي بیا داسې بندیان
Who dropped them off? Khitab?
ترجمان ورته اوس وکیل صاحب راځي زه به پله ورسم دښته به ورسم باره به خپل خبرې ورسره شریک د بندیان په باره کې
Can we give them water?
وای دغه اوبه وړای سو
یا اوبه ورته شیله مو وړي هغه ته موږ تر څو پورې چې موږ معنا خپل دغه کوو وکیل صاحب چې راسي بار یې راباسو ډوډۍ مو ورکوو خپل اوبه ورکوو ته څه شی مو وړي تر څو پورې
نه
ستاسې اجازه نشته سمه زه پلته ته ورسم ور نه
Just wait. I don't want to piss them off. It's their show.
They show their prisoners. If they kill them, they'll learn.
We got to prevent that, though.
Right.
Doesn't the U.S. military have more, capable kind of resources to do? This is literally nation building from the psyche up.
Well, the idea has always been fight your way into a town, clear the Taliban out, then all these other people come in to train the Afghans in governance and build infrastructure and so on. That other bit rarely ever happens, and certainly doesn't happen anywhere near as much as it should be happening. So it's left to guys like him, who as you say, are trained to fight, not to do all these very complicated, difficult jobs. And later that day, a local politician arrived. He was the man behind the taking of the prisoners.
Was the purpose of the whole mission, the operation last night, just to go get his brother back and get those Taliban, or was there another mission and they just happened to get these guys?
دا بندیان هغه خو نه ټینګېږي هغه په کلایګاس کې دي چې اوس دا علاقه مې زما ورور هلته وژني ما دې ګواښ وکړ که په دې ورځ کې د سنګینه ورک نه شوې موږ ستا ورور وژنو نو په دې خاطر ما دلته کښېنم چې زما ورور مړ نه کړي نه دوی اوس ما سره تبادله کوي زما ورور دوی راولي په دغو کسانو زه دا ور علاقه کوم نور جرم موږ نه ورسره کوو نه وو نه بندیان وو چې ما زما ورور راوسي زه دوی وړاندې ور علاقه کوم.
If he can only arrest Taliban, that's what that warrant was for the Taliban that kidnapped his brother. Kidnapping their brothers is just the same as kidnapping any random person. It's kidnapping. It's a crime. It's not legal to kidnap just any person, only if they're Taliban and they catch them. Other than being the brothers of the Taliban who kidnapped his brother, haven't done anything wrong. They haven't committed a crime. So they cannot be arrested if they haven't done anything wrong themselves. Just because they're the brothers of the Taliban does not mean that they are Taliban themselves.
This shows how powerless they are. They don't really know. All they know is 4 guys have been illegally taken, are being illegally detained, not fed, not given water, and it's being hidden from them. They're playing catch up all the time. That's all they can do. The Marines I was with turned up to spend the night at this patrol base, but the Afghan police had pulled the security barrier down and were selling it as scrap metal at the local bazaar. So they had no security whatsoever in their base, so the Marines couldn't stay.
All gone. Basically looks like no blood or anything. So I just took them out of here. So they were still here, but I don't know where they are right now. You got to find out where to draw the line as far as where you want to try to make them in. We don't want to make them into American police. That's not the intent of being over here. But we also want to teach them just the human rights piece of it. That if you do have a detainee or a prisoner, that you still have to give them water.
So while the Marines were somewhere else, they snuck them into the back of the truck and snuck them out the gate.
Leave it!
It's sort of a slightly half-hearted effort to make them stop, because they haven't got the power to make them stop.
I got a good look at two of them. Two of them had their face covered up, so we can still look at the head pictures. See who they might be.
It's hey, if you don't have your gear on, get it on.
So after the truck went out with the 4 detainees in the back, 3 surrounding police patrol bases came under attack from the Taliban.
South-southeast. How far? At least 300 meters.
As soon as the Taliban see the US Marines truck somewhere, they don't attack it. They only attack the weak spots.
Right.
Although some bullets eventually came towards the watchtower that we were in.
Hey, what are they shooting at?
Hey, tell them to watch out. They're just a fucking...
Talk to them, Donald.
Truck coming in.
بخته هغه ته کوچنیان دا وای چې تکان مکو چې کوچنیان باندې لګي
شدلې پرو کړو سودانه
بخته سو تکان وکړو
هیڅکه
Don't shoot until you can see them.
وای چشته
وای تر څو چې نه دلې نه د کتل
ورته عدالت نه سي ورته خو دغه سیز مشاوره مولي ورته زه دوه وخت ما تر وسه نه دی ور کړی
inside the camp and how can I see them if I don't shoot they will stop
Wait till they come out.
Then if you don't shoot, if you don't see them, then you can't hit them with the bullets. You're gonna waste ammo.
وای چې ته مهمت په اماسه مسافه چې صبر وکړه چې تر څو ویني بیا
Kids ran into the tree line.
وای چې هغه ته کوچنیان هم دا اوس مو ولیدل
کوچنیان روان ولا
کوچنیان روان دي
You got any eyes over there to the left?
Negative.
Got nothing.
Where, sir?
And he was so angry he couldn't shoot. He just grabbed the big machine gun, ran out the gate, and then just fired wildly.
He's just walking and shooting. He's not aiming at anything.
Around at the corner?
Yeah, they're just walking down the alley shooting at nothing. They're just walking down the alley like this, shooting.
وقتبه برا ورابه که تبه ورا که مهمات برا که
Not if we don't have it.
وای چې موږ نه لرو
ځان خپل نستیمو بسته و اخر موږ برا په دغه تیګو جنگ ورسره کو ګوره دا تیګي و
if you run out of ammunition you will use these rocks to fight the Taliban.
All right. Good to go.
This is another patrol base where they're advising the police, and on the police base there's this huge weed plant, like right next to their little area where they have their meetings. Inside the police base.
Did you see weed everywhere?
Everywhere. Every police base has got a little garden.
هغه به دغه ته ځي خو خو د سینو کنه
زه په سکه نه سکل لرم نه راکټ لرم ما د اسکل یو چې جنگ څه د زموت زما د اسکل د نه وی لار دی نه د جنگ دی نه د شدي نه راکټ لرم نه وان لرم نه سکل لرم ته په کاله شي خو نه بر طالب نه کړی دا ما سکل
دا ټول ساتل دغه د نور نسته
یا نه سودا دا خراب دي ټکانه مو الا لو شکر
Well, you have two options. You can go to PHQ and you can tell them your situation. Or you're going to have to learn to work with what you have. But I recommend you go to PHQ and you tell them your situation and show them that weapon and demand that they give you more weapons to replace that.
They don't understand that, yeah, actually, there has been a transformation. We are supposed to take the lead. They're still expecting the U.S. forces to take the lead.
Well, and that's what amazed me is how it hasn't got through to the Afghans yet. I mean, one Afghan soldier said to me, oh no, it'll be great when the Americans leave because all the money they had for weapons and equipment, we'll get that money. And I was saying,
it doesn't
you
really
won't.
work like
no,
that.
No. And also someone somewhere, I'm sure, has said, Remember when we supported the Mujahideen against the Russians, and remember we left all those weapons there, and we had to spend years and millions of dollars getting those weapons, particularly the Stinger missiles, back. We're not making that same mistake again. So these guys have got AK-47s, a few RPGs, unarmoured pickup trucks, a few Humvees, which are not safe enough for the Americans or British to drive anywhere, and that's all they've got.
Well, here's the thing. We're trying to get you to the point where you can operate without heavily depending on American help. But nothing is going to happen until you sit down and you show us a plan.
چې موږ به د طالب دشمن ورو شو چې په دې خوا دی هغه به دم غړي به غزما جوړ کړل د مینو ټیم را سره وو لاري به ساګه کار وکړي مشترک غزما او دا تاسیس دغه سیستم د بیخي د سست تر غلې دغه د پاره چې ما سره وعده کړې ده چې زستا ته مجاز کوم بیا به اساس زم بیا به خپل دی وای دی برګي او دا تاسو نه مجاز کړې زسنګ خپل دی وای دی په وسو
You need to come up with a plan on how you're going to use all your men and attack this IED factory, and we'll be behind you, helping you out. But you're right, times are changing. The Marines are no longer going to take the lead anymore. You have to learn how to operate as if we are no longer here. I hear great things about you. You're a good PB commander, so you have a lot of men here, and I think you're going to do great things.
And he eventually gets through to him that you have to come up with a plan yourself, then you can do it, and we'll support you if need be. So they leave with the police commander saying, okay, I'll come up with a plan within a few days and we'll do it. And a few days later he just vanished on leave and no one's heard from him since. No plan.
Helmet on. Alright, we gotta go. Put your helmet on, Saeed. Saeed, put your helmet on, brother.
At another patrol base, as usual, they didn't seem to want the Marines' help or advice.
You can just have your guys gather around right here, and then we'll show them what you do.
Well, based on the sandbags that we have, that's all we got. So let's go ahead and fill those up. Once we have filled those up, like I said, 5 of you guys will filling up the sandbags. The other 5 is gonna help out, get the other one fixed. Yeah, and then we'll switch. Hey, if you guys don't want to do it right now, I completely understand that. All right, but we're here to help you guys out. If you guys don't want our help, we'll leave the sandbags. You guys figure it out. We're taking our gear with us. We're here to help you guys out to make your tower safer. That way you guys don't get shot from all directions, all right? Babunas? Anywhere here? Huh? You gonna check? Yes or no? What? What? By the way.
Policeman at the checkpoint was smoking weed, which is kind of normal. But 2 of the policemen filling sandbags now are out of their brains on something else. Something stronger, opium or heroin. Literally nodding off as they stand up or sit down, filling the sandbags. So while all that was happening, someone fired a few shots at the watchtower that they were filling sandbags for.
Is that him? What's he shooting at?
What are you shooting at?
Shooting back to the west. They don't have positive ID.
What are you shooting at? What are you shooting at, brother?
But the PD commander wants to shoot
where?
Just to show force. I'll copy.
Huh? You see Taliban? Where'd you see Taliban? Yeah, where?
ده تو واشه ورته دغه چې و د ټکی ورته دغه بغچو سکی ورته دلی ناسي ورته وا
Taliban is still in the garden and sometimes they're gonna shoot us.
They're in the garden, they're gonna shoot at us?
Yeah.
ورته یو ټکی دا چې و دوه ټکی چې وکړه
Pull before something like.
They haven't seen who just shot at them. They just want to get some shots fired back as a sort of show of force.
What's that? They're in the garden?
In the gardens.
You gotta make sure you see them. You gotta make sure you see them because you're just firing rounds down there and you don't know what you're firing at. You gotta see them before you fire.
قبل از او که ببینید تا حالا خوب مشخص باز فایر کو بالش وقتی گوش ملکی هم میباشه امکان بودنش هست.
پروا نداره دیگه ملکی هم طالب خون میعلمه.
But just like I'm saying, just make sure you actually see somebody before you fire because you don't know what lies on beyond.
نه کلاکا چکان ضرورت نداره گالش ما وشما اینجا چای خوردم دو تا تک نبود از اینا.
Professionals don't do that. You know, professionals make sure they know their target and what lies beyond their target. Professionals don't just shoot out in the crowd. They're supposed to be professionals. You guys are professionals. That's why you don't do that.
And then 3 weeks later, the deputy commander got shot right through his body and scraped his lungs, and the Marine medics saved him, and they found a bag of heroin in his pocket. So I'm sure these guys were on heroin.
Are you putting your men back on the sandbags? You gonna have them carry them out here?
خپل کسانو ته وویل چې دغه ټول دغه بوجیان راولي.
تو سم ورته چای پیر راځي په دغه څو وجو سره دغه د بوجي دغه بل خلاص.
The lesson of the day was filling sandbags. The police got bored of that very quickly, pulled over a car at their checkpoint and just got some civilians and then some kids to fill and carry the sandbags for them. This is Major Bill Stuber. He's in charge of the police advisory team, 18 Marines who go out to all these bases. He spends most of his time at the police headquarters trying to advise the leadership. But the actual police chief vanished 8 days into his job, went on Hajj, hadn't been seen at this point for 2.5 months. The acting police chief has also just vanished, and he's got no idea where he's gone or you know what's happening.
What the hell's going on?
And basically when these guys vanish, they often take all of their commanders with them. So the last time this happened, half of the police force in Sangin just vanished. So every time the US Marines are alone with the Afghans, they have to have a guardian angel. So one of them has got his rifle cocked and his finger on the trigger, ready in case there's an insider attack.
You ever seen the TV show The Sopranos? It's vast. Everything from skimming ammunition off of their supplies to skimming fuel off of their shipments. There's false imprisonment. They'll take people during an engagement. They'll just wrap everybody up that was around it, and then they'll wait for the families to come in and pay them money to be able to release them. All of these vehicles are claimed on their monthly expenditures, so they're getting fuel and oil money for every single vehicle that you see, even though they're obviously they can't run, they can't operate. They only get a handful of vehicles that operate. So in the district, I think they have 25 vehicles, and maybe only 10 or 11 of them actually work. but they're collecting the fuel money and oil money for all the other vehicles, even though they can't actually operate them. Ammunition's the same thing. We count the rounds when they come off the vehicles here, and it's usually the rounds, the RPGs that are getting sold in the bazaar. That'll happen in transit because they know once they get it here and we take inventory of it, we're very watchful as to what's going on with that ammunition. Oh, this was taken off of a dead Taliban. What's interesting is the guy that was wearing this vest, when he came in, he was in the back of one of these trucks like this, and we went up to bring him a white sheet and they wouldn't let us cover him. That was kind of disturbing. I mean, there's just a kid sitting back there, you know, and pissed and shit himself and fucking bleeding all over, and yeah, it sucks. It sucks to see kids get fucking shot.
Did they say why they wouldn't give him a proper burial?
Said he didn't deserve it. And, you know, we brought the sheet for him anyway, just because, you know, whether he's a warrior, he's still a warrior, you know, and deserves to be treated like one, even in death. But they didn't seem to think that way. So that was the first time I'd seen that. So.
What's amazing is he's really candid about this soldier.
He's one of those guys. I mean, he was more sort of emotionally invested in this than anybody else, and he's the one who, you know, I said sometimes almost looked traumatized by what he couldn't do. I was kind of foisted upon him, and he had no choice but to, you know, let me go out filming with him. But he's one of those guys who just couldn't lie. I could ask him questions, and you saw him really wrestling with a good way of saying it, but he couldn't. He just couldn't tell lies, and I really admired him for that.
As an advisor, you know, you're a dog with a lot of bark and a lot of bite. So, you know, there's some things that in order to get the mission accomplished, I'm not gonna say, you know, we don't turn a blind eye to anything. We report everything, but there's certain things that, you know, that normally where you would just be like, hey, this is just a no-go. We're not going to do this. That in order to get the mission, accomplished, in order for them to actually go out and still hold security and hold PBs, you kind of got to let it go. You know, things like if we were to go in and shut down all of their schemes, all of their corruption schemes, you would render them completely ineffective. I mean, you take a look around.
Really disheartened, I think, by the end of this, because you know, even when guys were abducting and raping young boys and murdering them, nothing happened as a result of his reports. He was reporting everything he saw up to over 200 people in the chain of command. Nothing was ever done.
You've got guys like this right here. That's one officer, the administrative officer and investigating officer, who are here from Kabul. They're academy-trained policemen, professional. They can read, they can write. They believe in the rule of law. They believe in securing the population and the people and treating them right. I mean, these are the guys that are easy to work with. But then you have over here a PB commander who we know is kidnapping boys and sexually molesting them, and, robbing the people. I mean, he treats the people of Sangin like a piggy bank that he can just shake and rob, and you know, that's really difficult. You know, how do you work with a guy like that? The natural part of an advisor is you want to have the most effect on things. So it's easy to go work with a professional AUP like this. But really, where we need to be is working with guys like that. So try doing that day in and day out. Working with child molesters, working with people who are robbing people, murdering them. It wears on you after a while.
So that's Hamid Khan, an Afghan army commander, and he was the one note of kind of cautious optimism. I mean, the US Marine said he's the best Afghan army commander they've ever seen. Like, really good guy, really motivated, had all the answers to the right questions.
Not stoned.
Not stoned. And I think if he saw his, well, there were quite a few soldiers that were stoned, but I think if he saw his men doing things wrong, I think he would stop it.
برادران سلام علیکم. خب بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. قراره که ما و شما قبلا هم آمادگی داشتیم برای عملیاتی که در منطقه به نام بیانزوی. فردا ساعت صبح وقت دیگه ما چیز میکنیم. خدا خواسته باشه بخیر یک عملیاتی به مشترک همراه پلیس محلی ما داریم که پلیس محلی ما داخل ساحه همراه ما میشوند. زمانی که ما داخل ساحه میشیم تقریبا به 3 گروه ما تقسیم میشیم. گروه اول ما گروه مانور است، گروه دوم ما گروه حمایه آتش است، گروه سوم ما گروه ریزرو است. زمانی که ما صبح وقت حرکت کردیم میایم به آخوندزاده خیل، از آخوندزاده خیل همراه پلیس محلی یک جای میشیم. پلیس محلی به خاطر چند گپ همراه ما می باشند. پلیس محلی نسبت از اینکه شناخت بیشتر در مورد دشمن دارن، یک دیگر راهی که دشمن مین نداره، راهی که به اصطلاح مین نداره و دشمن اون نقطه را به اصطلاح مین گذاری نکرده برای پلیس محلی معلوم است. به این معنی که ما اگر داخل ساحه شویم هم با مین دشمن سر بخوریم هم با خود دشمن سر بخوریم، این ما و شما را به یک مشکل بسیار وسیع برمیخوراند در جریان جنگ. بیا خودت دوجا. آر پی جی کی است؟ آر پی جی برو دوجا برو. بیا دیگه آر پی جی. تو بیا دیگه گروپ دیگه.
There are all kinds of other issues with the army. They're still completely dominated by the northern ethnic groups. There are very few southern Pashtuns, like 2 to 3% of the army are southern Pashtuns. So a lot of southern Pashtuns see the Afghan National Army as being almost as foreign as we look to them. Back in 2001, 2002, we could have created an actual national army, but it's an exaggeration to call this a national army. It's not a national army, it's the Northern Alliance. It's the historical enemies of the Taliban. One thing you do see is with these guys is they've got pictures of Massoud everywhere.
Right, who was the leader of the Northern Alliance.
Yeah.
But he was just another warlord like the other one.
Well, you talk to Afghans and many Afghans will say, listen, you in the West love Massoud, but you know, when they shelled Kabul, tens of thousands of civilians were killed. And entering into these southern villages with pictures of Massoud everywhere it's almost like me driving around New York with a picture of bin Laden, you know, in the window of my car. That's an exaggeration, but you don't look like the army who have come to protect and serve when you come in with pictures of Massoud and pictures of Dostum, who's probably the most brutal warlord in Afghanistan's recent history.
در وقت شروع جنگ اگر دشمن شروع میکنه جنگ در قدم اول پرسونل ما اول موضع میگیرن، بعد از اون ترصد میکنن در مرحله سوم انداخت میکنن بالای دشمن. از انداخت اضافه مهمات قطعا جلوگیری میشه. رسیده عملیات ما و شما امکان داره که تا شام ادامه پیدا کنه، بیش از 12 ساعت طول بکشه. دشمن شاید مقاومت بکنه، نشه که باز بر ما مهمات هم به سر وقت نرسه و باز موجه به کمبود مهمات مواجه شد. جان مردم ملکی، مال مردم ملکی، عزت آبروی مردم ملکی در این جریان عملیات ما و شما محفوظ می باشه. رسیدی؟ چرا که در ساحه احتمال داره مردم ملکی هم باقی مانده باشه. دیگه آخرین کوشش ما می باشه که ما فرق دشمن با فرق ملکی بکنیم.
There was a big drive to try and get southern Pashtuns to join the national police and the national army. It failed. So they created local militias. They're called the Afghan local police. Every village has got its men of fighting age. They're tough guys who protect their village. Some are Taliban, some are anti-Taliban. And we just said to all of them, regardless of their history, if we put you on the payroll, will you fight for us or not fight against us? And that's what these guys are. They're the Afghan local police.
Taliban.
And some of the local police didn't look over 16 years old. So as soon as we start walking towards this Taliban-controlled village, they come under fire and straight away start shooting back despite not having any idea where the Taliban are. Point, they're firing towards the Afghan local police.
Overside of the river, lots of pieces. You're crossing by boats and ships and coming here, shooting, then going back and crossing the river.
So the ANA are in the First village they wanted to clear, the first village which is still controlled by the Taliban. It's incredible to think there's still a village within 2 miles of the main base in Sangin where foreign forces first arrived over 6 years ago, that's still controlled by the Taliban. But they're hoping to clear this village today. And there's a village on the north side of the river which is also Taliban controlled. But they're hoping to collect all the local elders and persuade them to, join Afghan security forces, the Afghan government, and reject the Taliban and let these guys establish a permanent presence here. At the minute they're firing lots of rounds, but don't seem to be shooting at anything.
Sniper.
Are there enemy anywhere near that?
I don't believe so.
That guy who's just firing as if he's having a fit, 3 days later fled with loads of weapons, a few rockets, planning to kill the commander.
Why?
He defected to the Taliban.
Holy shit.
Insider attacks against Americans and British have got lots of headlines. It's far worse, insider attacks against Afghans.
Right.
Far worse. And he had 3 people working with him and they either lost their courage or something, but they were still within that army unit and no one knows who they were.
Yeah.
So there's a balloon in the sky that films everything. They've got them all over Afghanistan.
Whose balloon?
American.
American.
And they've got these cameras that, night vision, thermal, which mean you can follow somebody for weeks.
Kind of like low-range drones. They just sort of sit there.
Yeah. But they can stay up there in one place for weeks, just attached by one cable. So someone is watching all of this, and he says, it's 4 guys, not sure if it's Taliban. But as they were running away, one of them ran out and planted a white flag in the middle of all that firing. And it's not a flag of surrender, that's the Taliban's flag, a white flag.
Oh, shit.
Planted that, and then they escaped.
Why is he collecting the casings?
He's an old man who's in the Afghan local police, but he hasn't signed up and registered yet, so he's not getting paid. So he collects all the casings to sell as scrap metal at the local bazaar. So the Marines accompanying the ANA are not really advising at all. They let the ANA plan and execute the operations themselves, and they're just here just in case things go badly wrong and lots of people are about to get killed. But apart from that, this operation really is Afghan-led, and I've never seen that before. I've seen lots of operations that, where the claim has been it's Afghan-led, but it's a farcical claim. This really is an Afghan-led operation. Good. Dushman,
Taliban finish.
Finish?
No good Taliban.
Run away.
Fuck you, Taliban.
So at the end of that operation, they walked back to the village where they started, and they got the few remaining local elders together and said, look, you need to give us some men, give us some young men and form your own local police force and defend your village.
ټول غواړي چې ساعت د دشمن د مینون هم خلاص شي او د دشمن هم خلاص شي. څو ورځې مخکې تاسو ته معلومات و چې دلته په همدغه بیانځای کې څو نفر د طالبانو د مین ملکیان شهیدان شي. چې تاسو دشمن خو داسې دشمن ده چې یونیفورم نه لري. د تاسو او د دوی په منځ کې فرق نه کیږي، فقط څوک فرق کوي تاسو یې چې فرق کوي. زموږ غوښتنه دا ده چې دولت هم اوس حاضر ده چې تاسو ته سلاح ورکړي، تاسو ته حمایه وکړي. تاسو یو نفر چې محلي پولیس ته راځي دغه یو نفر نه ده، یو کور ده، یو کلی ده.
زموږ پاشه خو دغسې د شریکه چې موږ خو ډېر په ازاد یو چې مځکې یې کوو، ټکټروانان مو پښې پرې کېږي، کوچنیانو مو پښې پرې کېږي، پر مینو باندې خېږي، حیوانانو مو مانا تپېږي، سرایونو مو نړېږي. نو دا خو بیخي غټ عذاب و تکلیف دی. معنا د خپلو سرایو د خپلو دغو څخه فرار یو په دشت پراته یو.
په دغه کلي کې شپېته او اویا ځوانان نه دي؟
ولې نشته؟
خو تصمیم ونیسو موږ او تاسو تر څو پورې د تاسو پښې پرې شي
خدای فضل دغه سپین ګیری وګورئ کاکا وګورئ د خپل کلي کور د خلکو په خدمت کې نن سلا اخیستې ده د محلي پولیسو سره ولاړ ده همدغه څه ده که نه دغه تاسو د هغې نه ځوانان هم یو فزیکي قوه هم ورنه ډېره ده ورنه تکړه هم یی
دغه حاجي صاحب ته وګورئ
دغه محلي پولیسو کې ولاړ دی ودرېږئ محلي پولیس جوړ کړئ دغه بیانزو کې 15 طالبان راځي په خپله خوله وایي ته ورته وایې چې مه راځه تا خبره یې قبوله نه کړه هغه د بېګا مین ور باندې پټاو شو موټروان یې والوځولو که غواړئ چې په سوله او امنیت کې ژوند وکړئ خپلو ځمکو باندې په ښه شکل کار وکړئ خپل ماشومان هم مدرسې ته ولاړ شي مکتب ته ولاړ شي په راتلونکي کې روښانه ژوند ولري
زه چې بار ستا په کلي کې عملیات وکړم ته تا ته به خوند نه کېدی یا به ستا پر دماغ بده پرېږدي موږ غواړو چې ته زموږ سره کومک وکړې زموږ سره همکاره سي ټوپکان واخلي تر هغه وخته پورې چې ته ستوانمندي رسېږي زورمندي مو رسېږي چې ته تقویه کېږي د دښمن سره مسابقه کوي تر هغه وخته قومندان صاحب حمید خان دی قومندان صاحب توري علي خان دی ته راسې د خدای پر لیاز دغه قرآن پر لیاز د علیه السلام بارک پر لیاز باندې بې اتفاقي مه کوه
That was pretty amazing to think that after all of this money and effort and bloodshed, all we're saying to villagers like these guys is, we'll give you a weapon and you can defend yourself. So we're asking Afghans to pick sides and side with the Afghan government right as we're leaving and right as the Taliban are as strong as ever. And if I was an Afghan living in Helmand province...
It's like, hey, pick the losing side.
Yeah, or I wouldn't pick any side. I'd be nice to whichever strong man was in my garden at that point.
Then, in the middle of all this, there was a visit from the American ambassador and the British deputy ambassador. I was told it was a symbolic visit.
Sangin has always been known as the most dangerous town in Afghanistan. So the American and deputy British ambassadors visited to show if they can visit this hostile town of Sangin, then progress must be being made. They walked about 150 metres, had lunch, had a briefing where they were given nothing but glowing reports about how wonderfully everything was going.
So they're not, you're saying they're not staying and fighting, they're starting to move out?
Yes, sir. A little bit earlier here specifically because of some of the operations that have been taking place in our battle space, sir. We ripped out with 1-7 about a month ago and significantly reduced a lot of the Marine presence in Sangin and northern Helmand, and we've seen ANSF continue to hold all those patrol bases throughout Sangin.
The numbers may show that there is an increased frequency in the attacks. The effectiveness is far less than ever before. People are talking about security may not be that good, and I showed a map of 2010 where you could see the entire Sangin Valley is blocked red. And now we talk about it in pockets, like this entire district. And I said that's a good thing. So there's not that sustained presence that we may have seen in the past. So again, it's a continuing growth throughout the district, and it's starting to expand. Working together, it's across all lines, exactly where we want Sangin to be right now. Exactly.
So it is working?
Absolutely, sir. We've got the
whole cooperation, learning thing, that's all taking place?
Yes, sir. The advisor teams are really what have taken hold in here. And
the ambassadors want to visit Sangin because that shows that Sangin is now, the most dangerous town in Afghanistan is now safer than it was.
They're pretty out of touch.
It felt like they were there for the photo op and to tick a few boxes and then leave. I mean, the Marine Major, who was so open and honest about all the problems he's having, kidnapping, murder, drug abuse, child rape, he was there and had to sit through this briefing, didn't say a word, wasn't asked a single question.
That's a deliberate choice, not to ask him a question.
Well, I guess the CO just wanted to present a very rosy picture. If they turned up and they hear that there's child abuse, murder, drug, kidnapping, all going on, then the whole PR stunt has failed miserably, hasn't it?
Right behind you. I don't know what supposed to say. Thank you very much. Thank you. We're very committed to our relationship. This is a small gift of the local business.
So this is a peace jirga that doesn't involve the enemy, only involves one side, and nothing was announced or decided. I mean, the idea of a jirga is people with opposing views come together, thrash it out and reach a consensus?
I'm here today to come with the chairman of the High Peace Council, Salahuddin Rabbani. He's attending a peace jirga here, an important event in Sangin, and I've been wanting to come here for some time. This is my first visit to Sangin, and I've been very impressed by what I've seen so far.
And there was a time not that long ago when we promised Afghans that their country would be rid of the Taliban. What's changed?
I don't know that we promised the Afghans that the country would be rid of the Taliban. We've always understood, I think, that there's no way to end an insurgency, this insurgency, through military means, especially since the leadership enjoys its presence in Pakistan. So the prospect or the job is not to rid Afghanistan of the Taliban, but to create a way so that the insurgency ends and Afghanistan is secured. The Afghan security forces are responsible for security lead over 75% of the population now today, and that process will continue until they are in the lead for the entire country. We have developed now a way to move forward that will make Afghans responsible increasingly for their own future and for their own security and their own processes, and that is as it should be. I think post-2014, we can't really tell what will happen. The door is open, as I said earlier, to a reconciliation process that will bring Taliban back into Afghanistan if they choose to take that path. And for our part, we intend to continue assistance and partnership with the Afghans going forward if they wish.
We're here today to support the Peace Jirga here in Sangin, which is a gathering of several hundred of the most important tribal leaders from around this area to talk about peace and reconciliation. I think peace involves people making hard choices, and I think it's about the choices that people make, not about what label they are carrying now. If the Taliban choose that they want to participate in politics in Afghanistan, if they choose to renounce violence, if they choose to take part in elections, in choosing of people's leaders, then any group that makes those choices can be part of a settlement here. If they don't make those choices, if they set themselves up against the Afghan state, then they won't be part of the process. I think it's as simple as that.
But sorry, I mean, what's changed in that we're now open to the idea of the Taliban having some say in how the country is run? You know, a few years ago, I think we would have said the Taliban have finished in Afghanistan and will never again control the lives of Afghans in any way.
I think we've always been open to the idea that people who want to take part in politics in this country, who respect the constitution, who respect the rights of people, have a right to take part in politics in this country, just as in any other country.
I think I can speak with confidence when I say that if you asked a lot of local people here who are the bad guys in this area, they would say the police rather than the Taliban. How can you change that perception in a fairly short amount of time?
I'm not sure I agree with that perception, Ben. I think, again, talking to the Marines who are here, who are out on patrol with those policemen every day, they say that the attitude of the Afghan population here in Sangin has changed hugely over the last few years.
And then at the end of this briefing, the helicopter out was delayed by an hour and a half. So I said to them, go and talk to Major Stuber for an hour. Just say, this won't affect your career, but go and speak to him and tell him, ask him to tell you what's really going on, just 200 metres down the road. And they said, oh, he wouldn't be open and frank with us like he is with you. And they went and had a cup of tea with their bodyguards instead. Walked back, got on the helicopter and left. But you literally walk 200 metres out of the main gate and you'll see that you know, that's not true at all. The exact opposite is true. So ISAF put out a statement after this saying the diplomats visited the once insurgent hotbed of Sangin and saw firsthand the progress being made there, which I think was the point of going there, really, not to actually talk to guys like Major Stuber, and certainly not to talk to these guys. These guys are the elected local officials, and the British are very proud. They created this local council, elected by 2,000 residents of Sangin. But I spent a whole day with them, and not one of them had a single good thing to say about what we've achieved there.
د ځان دغه کې چې د تلفات کم سي او د مشکل کم د زمر سره وعده کړ چې په څورسن کې به موږ د دشمن جدي بارس بیا به موږ ځو او دشمن هغه سره پروت دی نو زمر په لسان په هغه وخت کې د بیل زیاده موږ پوهیږو چې زمر په لسان ته مرګ جوړ
خو دغه پروژې چې دوی کړي دي دغه مصرف چې دوی کړی دي د دوی مصرف هغه اندازه چې دوی لګولې ده هغه د ولس په ګټه سلام یې سم نه د کار سوی یا کانټراکټ والا وړي دي یا غله وړي دي یا بل وړي دي یا بل وړي دي
دوی چې راغلي په افغانستان کې وو دوی راغله په افغانستان کې مطلق یا د خودلته کار چې دوی راغله مګر دلته کار سره ونه رسېدی هغه مشکل دوی نس کولای دوی د معنا بس په ځان خلاصي مطلق موږ پوهیږو چې دوی زموږ کوم امنیت تامین شوی دی چې دوی ځانونه باسي دوی کومه فابریکه را جوړه شوه چې موږ ته چا تیاري راکړې چا ټانکونه راکړه راوستلي په میلیونو ډالران یې مصرف شوي په میلیونو خلک راغلي دي چې خلک په زراو چې مړه شوي د دوی امریکایان د انګریزیان د دار دولت خلک دلته مړه شوي دي موږ پوهېږو نو موږ به کله دونه مقابله وکړو چې په دوه لاس په دوې پښې باندې د دونه خلکو مقابله وکړو موږ خپله ګزاره سره کوو چې دا د افغانستان به بېرته دوی ته هلته ورسي په هغه امریکا کې
ډېر مشکل د امنیت څه لرو مګر امنیت خو لوږه نه راځي زموږ د لوږې غم او امنیت یو ځای نن هماغه عاد اوس هم شروع دي پرون ما د هغه پوستې قربان ګرده ورځ په ناستو تېره کړې دي چې هر ځای دې سر ورپورته کړی وای هغه ګومې یې په سره اړول د ده دا شکه او زموږ د هېڅ اعلانه سره سمېږي د کومندان صاحب څخه او د جوالي صاحب محترمه صاحب د جنرالان محترمان څخه دا هیله کوم چې د کوڅېدو اوضاع ډېره ناامنه ده ما دا 3 میاشتې چانټه تړلې ده 4 ساعته پر ما باندې ټکان شروع دي په دا
That's pretty bad.
And that, if anyone would be pro foreign intervention, it would be those guys, elected local officials. Before that briefing had happened, Major Stuber knew that 3 young boys had been shot dead on police patrol bases. All 3 of them were Chai boys. So young boys who had been abducted by the police commanders and were used as servants. They served tea, but also sex slaves. They're raped by the police commanders. And you see them on every base. You see several boys, sometimes in uniform, sometimes not, but 13, 14 years old. It's very common practice there. 3 of them had been shot dead by the police, 1 possibly by another Chai boy, nobody's quite sure. And he's just found out that a 4th boy has been shot at point blank range in the leg for trying to escape. And I was there, so he let me follow him to meet the acting police chief and confront him about this.
Yesterday we had unfortunate news come in. A young boy, about 13, maybe 14 years of age, was shot. Now, there's a couple of things on there that you and I have talked about. We've had all the PB commanders in this very room about having young boys and civilians on PBs.
I have mentioned it more than 20 times.
I know. Why was there a boy on that PB? What did that commander say to you?
خودشان کنده در علی قضای خود عجب رو جمعی خودت کنید ما راپور دادیم که ملکیسته ناسا هم در ملکی میایه ما برش گفتیم که ایره نگاه نکن پیش آوردیم همو بچه بگو خودشان میخواه که در پوسته بشینه آشوانه برای عجب کنه شما که بگو وقت خواستم یک نفر ریش سپیدم ما بگو آورده بودم بوده جلب کردم که یک بچه خوردش او یک نواسی خوردش در پوسته بود ما برش میگم که نواسه و بچه تا ببر بلیت خدا ما را پشش خلاص کو اگر بذات خدا تو را بندی میکنم ما را میگم ما چطور کنم که میبرمش پس نه.
He's saying the boys want to be there, which begs the question, well, why would they be trying to escape? And in one case they tried to poison, one of them tried to poison the policeman so that he could escape, and that's what led to him being shot.
We cannot have children in PBs. We can't have children even wearing uniforms like this one was yesterday. It's against the law.
ما کدام تردید ندارم در رفتن موتو ولی موضوعی طور است که موتو در جلسان برش گفتیم در پوسته که میرو طفل پت میکنه ما خودم ما بایی میفهمم که کنی مردم اصلا خراب چشم دارن با یک دپا و 2 دپا و 20 دپا و 100 دپا نمیشه که ما برای ازیا میگیم که طفلا را نگاه نکنی کنی را نگاه نکنی طفلا نگاه نکنی ناسوق نگاه نکنی سر از اون که دیشو برش گفتم میشه ما در پوسته رفتیم پیش ما طفلا پت کرد.
So this meeting went on for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and as you can see, he's not interested in stopping this practice and doesn't really seem to think there's anything wrong with this practice.
Let's do this. Let's get together and go out there and get these kids out of these PBs and get them back to their families. We'll go in there early in the morning. And we'll start going from PB to PB to PB. And if they've got kids in there in the morning time, then we know that they've probably stayed there overnight. We'll free the kids and we'll arrest the PB commanders.
Eventually, maybe to wrap up the meeting, he says, okay, I agree, we'll go out, we'll do a raid first thing in the morning, and we'll arrest these commanders who are keeping child boys. So Major Stuber thought he'd made a real breakthrough.
I have things that I can do to help you. You and I are in a position right now to change this situation in this city. If you do this, people will know that you are somebody who stands for justice in this area. Do this, okay? I'm serious.
So Major Stuber walked out of that meeting thinking this operation was going to happen, think they were going to turn up there first thing in the morning and arrest these guys. A few hours later, he got a call on the radio, can't do it, operation's cancelled, and to this day, no operations taken place to even question the police commanders.
How rampant is this Chai boy?
One of his men who is less cares less about this than he does, said to me, try finding a police commander who doesn't fuck young boys. Most of the patrol bases that the British and Americans fought so hard to establish have been abandoned or handed over to the Afghans. Major Stuber gets, he's bolstered because the actual police chief has returned, a guy called Guli Khan, and 8 days into his job as police chief of Sangin, he had just gone on Hajj unannounced and disappeared for 2.5 months. He'd been accused of keeping Chai boys in the past and been accused of corruption, but said he's come back a new man, and Major Stuber really thought he could make a difference.
There's been some things going on here since you've left that are really driving a wedge between the police and the community. The biggest one coming outside is that thus far you've had 3 children, young teenagers that have been shot by PBs. All that has happened within the last 3 months. There was one boy killed in this PHQ. There was another boy killed with a PKM across in Cache de la Ray. And we just had a 13-year-old boy shot through the leg at Sadr Khat. And there's a 4th unconfirmed report of a boy who serves tea and up at Shamshir Char. There was a fight between 2 PBs, and the boy that they were fighting over, we have reports that he was shot in the face and killed. We definitely have to focus on these because you can do 100 good things and then have a policeman go and do something like that, and then the community, all they focus on is the one bad thing. So I know that's an uncomfortable issue, and I know that's nothing that you would ever allow to have in your PBs, but that's what's been happening here in your absence.
مشکلات چی مشکلات بوده او خوب کار کرده خوب کرده او خوب است او وظیفه ما و شما است که خوب کار بکنه ولی خالیگاه که دارم ما و شما باید سریعی باز کنه که خالیگاه چی بود چی مشکل بود این همین مثل نمی بسیار خوب چیز است بعد ما
I also say that this is also something else that's very good. These are all the patrolmen who are ready for academy.
This really gave a feeling of optimism. He was sending 20 men off to Lashkargah, the provincial capital, to get proper training. They were going to come back professional policemen.
ډیرو ګرانو
ډیرو ګرانو او محترم سربازانو، نن تاسې د خپل د نظم او ډسپلین لپاره او د انضباط او ډسپلین لپاره نوې اکاډمۍ ته استخدامیږئ. شکر دی تاسې ټوله داسې نوي ځوانان یا چې په تاسې کې زه داسې څوک نه وینم چې هغه دې یا کوچنی وي یا ضعیف وي. دوستانو، اکاډمي ویل زموږ ستاسې دپاره ډېره ګټه لري. تاسې چې هلته اکاډمي واسو استادان لرئ، د خپل استادانو درس ته غوږ ونیسئ. تاسې یو څه زده کړئ، د دې دپاره ته ځئ چې هلته یو څه زده کړئ او بیا دلته راسئ، خپل دغه وطن د دغه خپلې ولسوالۍ دپاره په ښه توګه خدمت وکړئ. د دغه ځایه څخه چې ډېر په نظم، په ډسپلین، په پټه خوله د چا سره کوم جنجال مه جوړوئ، د چا سره کوم مشکل مه جوړوئ. تاسې دې دپاره چې خپل درس ووایاست. نو ستاسې څخه مې توقع او ارزو دا ده چې تاسې راسئ او دا خپل نور خلک پوه کړئ چې ورور هلته اکاډمي ده، اکاډمي د علم زانګو ده، هلته د زده کړې دپاره ځئ، هلته د بانډو بانډبازۍ و د دې دپاره نه ځئ. خدای مو مرسي، کامیاب اوسئ، کامیابي مو غواړم. جوړ اوسئ. شکر.
The day after they went to Lashkar for police training, 6 of them got sent back because they failed the drugs test. So that was a Marine sweeping the ground.
Yeah, sweeping the ground.
Behind
the dudes walking.
Yeah, which sums up the situation perfectly there. This was an operation to find an IED factory that the police had got intelligence about. It turned out to be a derelict building with one old Chinese rocket hidden in the corner, which they got out, and then Guli Khan arrived to give a speech to the local elders. His message was pretty amazing.
دغه خلک چې دلته ناست دي یو له ولاکه دوم سړی لري.
څنګه دوم سړی؟
چې دوی دوم سړی تر شا لري یا یې د طالب سره لري یا یې ستاسو.
حاجي صاحب هغه خبره ما نه ده کړې چې ستا لري. هغه خبره زه نه کوم.
داسې درته وایم دا ګرده یو سر خلک دغه چې نن تاسې راګرځولي دي دغه چې دلته ناست دا ګرده یا مستري دی یا هلته په بازار کې کار
زه نه وایم.
همداسې دی شی نشته دلته اوس موږ ټول زموږ به خولې ته ولا که انسان له وګوري.
زه نه وایم خو د دغه څه مسله لښکر نه جوړېږي.
وایم دا خواران خو لښکر نشي جوړولی.
ما خبره بېرته پر ځای شوله چې ما درته وویل چې په دې شاله کې زه انتفاق نه وینم په هېڅ
هغه خو نشته.
نو ولې نشته؟ نو ولې نشته؟
یو د میرمندو پروت دی، یو د دغه کلاګر راغلی دی، یو دغه
په قومو به جلا یې، په اسلام کې خو به جلا نه یې.
یا په قومو سره جلا دي، په دین
په قومو به جلا یې. اسلام خو به یو اسلام
و یو اسلام
یو ورونه به یاست. نو بیا قومونه څه معنا لري؟ قومونه څه ګټه؟
اوس دا خبرې دي
سهار چا چاوې خوړلې چا نه خوړلې روانې ګرده خپل په خواري اخته دي. دا ټول مر تر سیاسرو تېره زموږ پر مومن تېره دلته زموږ په کور کې څوک نشته. نه ولاکه و طالب ته وایاست نه ولاکه و تا ته
ته ځې بازار کې 500 روپۍ ګټې. وایي حاجي صاحب 500 روپۍ په بازار کې ګټې مزدوري کوي. مګر عاجزه دې غورځولې ده، کوچنی دې غورځولې هغه څوک راځي په کښې جوړېږي.
It's kind of really pathetic and fucked up. And I mean, aren't these people just like exhausted from years of this shit? Like,
but that's why they're not going to pick sides. That's why they're just going to like try and have a quiet, easy life by being nice to whoever is in their backyard day to day. And at the minute, these guys and certainly us are leaving very soon, and the Taliban aren't going anywhere.
No.
So the idea they're going to stand up to the Taliban on their own is ridiculous.
نو چې مزدوري کوي عیال وایي سره کلا د کوله پر کور ولاکه څوک پاتې عجزه چاته وایي ته ولاړ
ولې به سطر پرې
ولاکه یا ته ته وایي هغه ته وایي موږ په دکان کې ناست موږ دا ګرده ته ورته سراینه تلاشه کړي یو څومره دا نن چې دا ناست د ګور دی دانه خلاصه ده یا بل دا څوک بره کور ته ګیریږي نو زه څه شم خو زه دانځم په بازار
زه درته دا درې نفرو ته جواب ورکړم مه کوه
کې هغه راکړي خو یې له ولا کړم
زه هم دا درو نفرو ته جواب
هغه ټکان ته ولاړ یم چې یا بهتره باندې که یا بغیر باندې موږ څه وکړو خو ولا که یوه چاره له بله لرو بیا خدایه موږ په واسه اوسې په خدای که یا پر تا باندې ټاک وسي یا هم په خدای که په واسې چې په واسه مو سي د دا جنجال له چا خوښه خپل یو ممې د چا سره کېږي چې په دبای ورسوي
بنده موتا نه وایي چې خدای پاک مو مړه نه کړي
خود مو نه وایي
په دې خوا عقیده لرو که نه لرو
ولې نه لرو
موتا د دغه عقیدې هم لري په دې هم عقیده نه لرو چې خدای موتا ته رزق راکوي.
You know, he's saying that despite this national army that's been created, this national police force that's created, you're on your own. And you need to not work, not leave your village, and stay here and stop the Taliban from entering your homes and firing from your homes.
دا ستا د کور د ټک نه راباندې کوي زه هم ته خپل د کور وساته زه نه درته چې دا وطن ماله وساته زه نه درته چې ما سره ټوپک واخله زه نه درته چې ما سره درشي واغونده زه درته دا خپل ځان وساته دا خپل زوی و دا کا زوی وراره و دوست کړي ورته مه کوه وروره مه کوه بالا بس تر څه وخته نه دی ټک د غم دی یو کوچنی تا په څه تکلیفونه رالویوې په څه خوارۍ رالویوې څومره مصرفونه تکلیفونه ځان وړې مګر یو امر مې راڅخه خوږي.
Supposedly the police and the army are there to protect these people from the Taliban, or at least drive a wedge between the people and the Taliban, and he's saying defend yourselves.
اوس خو به چا زما عسکرو چا تکلیف نه یې درکړی که څوک والی که چاته سپکه کړي که بله کړي ما ته ووایه چې دغه سړي ما ته سپکه خبره کړې موږ سپکه خبره چاته نه کوو هو وظیفه مو ده کور هم تلاشي کوو اشتباه لرو باندې کور هم تلاشي کوو زه هم تلاشي کوو که ټک را باندې وسو ټک هم پر کوو مګر چاته تکلیف نه ورکوو تکلیف ته پاره نه یو.
Do you think any of them might be Taliban as well?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. The Taliban aren't this outside foreign evil force that have come in. You know, the Taliban are, most of the Taliban fight allegedly within walking distance of their homes. There's always some Taliban there, always.
زه نور څه نه وایم ښه
This was the third Afghan army operation that I followed, and it was very tense because the guy who I pointed out earlier, who fled with loads of weapons.
Yeah, the guy that was firing like crazy.
Yeah. One of Hamid Khan's men was arrested a few days ago with loads of weapons and a lot of ammunition. And he was planning to kill a number of the Afghan soldiers. He had 3 accomplices who didn't flee, and no one knew if they were still planning on doing it.
Double agents or...
This day was, you know, everyone was really, even more than normal, watching their backs. So everyone's on the lookout.
If you think that he's starting to hold his soldiers back because we're here, let me know, because I don't want him to hold the soldiers back.
از نقطه میانرودی انداخت ادامه داره دشمن هم انداخت میکنه بگو پرسنل ما انداخت دارن پرسنل ما انداخت دارن دیگه تیمی که پیش است تیم پیش ما زیر آتش است تیم بعدی که تیم حمایه است او از تیم اول ما حمایه آتش میکنه حرکت هغه د ماینونو ځای مشته تاسو راشئ واه خو دیگه ته حالت بازی حالت چې د طالبانو بیرغ دی حالت ازي
In this operation they've got 2 local informers who they've dressed up in army uniform, put balaclavas on, actually gave them weapons later on, and they're sweeping through a village and they just point out who they say are Taliban, and those guys get arrested.
فقط یو څو پوښتنې په خاطر تاسو بوش سره راځي بیا بعد به تحقیقات معرفي
قومندان صاحب
دا قومندان صاحب
خپل پر آزاد سره زموږ شرم دی به خدای شرمنه داخل گذار یا قانون مراتب
دا اوس چاته ته وایي
فقط تصمیم یک سرباز بگو که اونمون سرباز متوجه نمی باشه
یه دا باید پتای تکشن قومندان صاحب چه سلاح برباز دادم
دغه گروپ سره تزی 2 نفر دیگر هم گرفتن
Is that like a common practice or a technique?
Yeah, fairly. But the problem with that is, you know, people can just point out their local rivals,
right?
Rather than the actual Taliban. The other problem with that is, even if they're genuinely Taliban, most of the people who get arrested and detained get released,
right?
Because of money paid to the right people or connections. The informer said this man was the former Taliban shadow governor.
هم مسافه بتیدشون هم زنگون کش و پرود بتیدشون در قبول نفرم چې تاسو واسطه دم مشکوک ده ستانو ماجی سبس شیده؟ محمود.
What often happens is they get sent to Lashkar, the capital, but the prosecutor just throws it out for lack of evidence because there is no evidence. It was claimed to me, and again I don't know how true it is, it was claimed to me that the police haven't prosecuted a single successful case in 2 years.
Almost.
So we've now got to start walking in the footsteps of the man in front of us, because this is the first band of IEDs that the Afghan soldiers have to walk through to get to the village they want to clear out. It's a road covered in pebbles, so it's very easy to hide IEDs.
Hey. سر از اون چیز زمان ماین بگو سعی کن اونجا ماین است ماین پاکستان باشه که ماین نباشه سعی کن اونجا پیش کامera بگو خط نبری خط نبری بچه‌ها خبر کن نه
ماین ندارد نیست
رقم ولا كيف منو خبر مرتر داول دا خاطر شو سويلان چیکار منی
خب په دغه لار تاسو زیو راځي دا څنګه بیا تاسو نه
دا مې دوم غاښتش دا
څوک مو خونو د سړک په غاړه کې یا ناست
یعنی دا څوک نه و چې خلک ته وایي چې تاسو لاړ نشئ
یا شپږوال ته ناس و دغه سره
ملکیان
و ملکیان د کورو سره ناس
طالبان نشکره
یا نو
طالبان په ساحه کې نه
راځي سرکټ کې راځي
څنګه یې
حرکت خلمس کشیده
بس ما ورنیشه کېږي چراغه تازه پټ کړی دا بس تر ایسته څه ما تیز کماندان سره خبره
اول ترکون هم کماندان سر یک نفر ما میرم مینا رو براتون نشان میده بعد از او باز تیمتان کاری میکنه
چی هست؟
همین لاینش خو لاین ماین هست که کاش نکنم همین یک دفعه کپولی
نه دست نزن که این بیجار میکنه
چیکو همینجا پیداش کو چیکو را کما لاین تعقیب کو پیش نبر حالا کاش ما این دیگه
زمزم سخت تگایم و برانم ولی دست تگایم
صبر تو کاش که مایدی متوجه میشی خب
چقدر پراسی که محکم زدی
به خاطر هیس واتر
خبر کنید خب
ها بخی از اینجا دور بره از اینجا هی دور بره که زیافه چیز داره
چرا نمیکنه
تو قید نکردین
قید کردم
چند قید کردین
این دو دقیقه زده بازه میشه ولی یک دقیقه پیر است یک دقیقه شما طالبان میکنم مجله را بوس بک
Fuck off! No problem. بیا بچه که دیگه گشت کجاست بیا
اگه قنبه یکی دو نشون داگید کوانا سکتا
تو هایدی دو دانه ماین دو تا
The focus of the operation became to remove this white flag, the flag of the Taliban, not a flag of surrender, and it's within view of one of the patrol bases. So all they wanted to do was take down this flag, and they had a few funny ideas about how to do it.
What are you gonna do, Hamikan? Yeah, blow up the tree?
You should. They told that they have not enough demo to destroy the tree. Otherwise, we must down the flag.
Yeah, the flag needs to come down, I agree.
That's near to our PV, and that shows the Taliban power. But they have no power they only up their flag here.
البته این ولاکه میشه یک دور دگرد درخت میزنیم
دی کی راکت دیده بیخ درخت دی و چپا میشه
راکت دینش
کجا تو هدفمند داری میزنه
راکت اون نزدیک شه اون از جای از اون دیده شد لامبر کنه دیده بغلک
نمیتونه زدن نمیتونه. شما استقامت شرق ما را ترصد کنید که بیرق پایان میکنیم که کسی سری بچه انداخت نکنه.
اساس چرونو گوشی
داد بیرق لاندې واخله در کشی که
تا څنګه منډه وای دا بیرغ تیر کله کوړې منګی در تر وړه مته چې مزه
مایده
دا ځکه یو مینه
پاس برین پاس همون طور خطا گرفته تعقیب کرده حرکت کنی بخیر بریم همه تو پاس دمویدم یک
So I think they did 9 IEDs in about an hour, which is unbelievably quick.
خب بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. عملیاتی را که ما شما پیش بردیم شکر خدا دستاوردهای بسیار زیاد داشت. در قدم اول همی که دشمن در ابتدا بالای ما که انداخت کرد پرسنل ما تانستن که هم دشمن را ضربه بزنن و هم با یک مصرف مهمات کم بدون تلفات ما تانستیم که دشمن از سایه ما را دور بکنیم که ما تانستیم با کمک مردم محل نقطه مین تثبیت بکنیم. همو 8-9 مینی که بود 8-9 مین ما از ساحه خنثی کردیم. بیرقی که دشمن بالا کرده بود به خاطر نشان دادن قوت و قدرت خود ایران تانستیم پایان بکنیم. با یقین که ما برای مردم خودم نشان دادیم که ما انشالله توانایی از این داریم که پیش از 2014 پیش از این که خارجیات افغانستان به اصطلاح تخلیه بکنن ما توانایی از این داریم که مسئولیت امنیتی افغانستان به دوش خود بگیریم. همین که ما امروز میپذیریم با همه کمی و کاستی‌های خود داخل ساحه میشیم برای خارجی میگیم که شما را دیگه ما ضرورت نداریم. دیگه شکر خدا از نقطه نظر تشکیلات، از نقطه نظر تجهیزات، از نقطه نظر مورال، از نقطه نظر فعالیت ما رو ببی دست بالای خدا داریم برای ملت خود اطمینان میتیم. هیچ طالب کار کرده نمیتونه. از توجهتان تشکر. ورونو د خدای پامان. نعره تکبیر. نعره تکبیر. نعره تکبیر. نظام پایت.
Okay. So meanwhile, back at the headquarters, Major Stuber is still wrestling with the same terrible problems.
We've built this PHQ here. We've got 4 towers, and we've got a generator, and we've got a pump, and gates and concertina wire. But it's empty. There's no fuel here. And because of that, because of this simple logistical need, they can't get out. They've got 34 patrol bases from all the way to the southern green zone, all the way to the northern green zone, that they can't get out to. If there's anything that's out there that's going to really jeopardize the security here, it's not going to be a lack of fighting will. It's going to be something as simple as this: not having any fuel to be able to get anywhere. Where the fuel comes into is Lashkar-Gah, which is generally a 2-hour drive away. And the southern part of the southern green zone there, known as the Page area, is still controlled by the Taliban. So you can't get a fuel truck up here. It's just too dangerous for them to bring that much fuel to try and come up here and get to refuel their tanks or refuel their vehicles. So what they have to do is they have to sell the fuel down there in Lashkar-Gah, and they sell the fuel, and anytime you start selling fuel or selling those types of things, you open the door for corruption to be able to enter into the process. And unfortunately, this particular PHQ used to get about 20,000 liters every month, and the spigot has literally been turned off on them.
And the Afghan government announced it was going to stop sending fuel down here, and it gave a figure of how much was stolen. How much was it?
I don't remember the number. It was it's nearly $1 million worth of fuel. So whatever $1 million US will buy in fuel.
The government of Kabul was saying because the police are stealing so much fuel, we're no longer going to give it to them. So they can't move, they can't go anywhere. That there was a big fight the night before and they couldn't get to it because they had no petrol. And the thing is, they just assumed that the Marines would bail them out and give them their petrol.
Right.
Which the Marines are now saying, no, it's not working like that anymore. You are on your own now.
Right, so they've been stealing it for years and getting it off the Americans, and now the Americans have cut them off.
Yeah.
We had a long discussion with Sergeant Mateen today about how somebody goes about getting a commission within the AUP. He said it costs about 50,000 Afghani, or which is about closer to $1,000 US to be able to get the bribes paid in Lashkar, and then it's another $4,000 US to get bribes paid within MOI in Kabul to be able to get them into the academy. So, in order to become an officer, just even a basic lieutenant here, it costs $5,000. So that's quite a steep price for an Afghan.
And these are big issues. Do you think they can be resolved by the time we leave?
No, not by that timeline. These are serious logistical issues, and the difference being that other militaries have educated people that are working very complex systems. And this is a very complex system. This right here, this generator right here is a very complex piece of machinery. They don't have the technical know-how to be able to operate this and run it. They don't have the systems or organizational know-how to be able to get fuel from their, through a distribution center to be able to fill up this tank. I only have basically 5 months to be able to teach them how to do this stuff. And then the next team's going to come in, and then we're going to spend a month trying to get, they're going to learn the AO for another month, and then they're going to have their time here and driving the bus, so to speak. And they still have to learn all this process and how it goes. So our actual amount of time that we have contact with them to be able to, one, understand their system, and then be able to coach them through it and help them be able to request the supplies and be able to have a functioning logistical section. It's a complicated task for anybody, and it makes it even more complicated when you have a police force whose officers can't read or write. They can't communicate on paper. I mean, if everything's done by cell phone, there's no tracking, there's no record keeping. The system becomes wide open for corruption, exploitation. I mean, you look on the roof of the building right there, you see these. You can see the solar panels that are up there, but when you go up there and you look at the solar panels, you see that they're not really connected to anything. And when you ask them, like, well, where does this go? Where, who put this in here? They can't answer those questions. They don't know how it works. And I've got policemen on my team. I've got an administrative officer, but I don't have any solar panel experts to be able to help them fix that out. So it's left to guys like myself and my team to try and figure out how to hook up solar panels and tie it into an electrical structure and a PHQ.
The whole policy is designed as if everyone was educated, literate, there was a permanent police force there for years, as if the Taliban were no longer a problem, as if everybody wanted little girls to go to school, and it's all a fantasy, for 10, 20 years down the road. None of the things that need to be in place now are anywhere near in place.
That antenna right there, every time I walk by it, I think, if that's not a symbol for what we're trying to do here, I don't know what is. I mean, it's a functioning radio tower. It's standing on its own. It's twisted and bent and held up with strings, but it's there and it works. And hopefully it'll still be there after 2014.
It felt like pretty much every day there was a major blow to Major Stuber. So, something really bad happened that he hadn't seen coming. In this case, there was a deputy police commander who he was sure had tortured detainees and had child boys himself, who everyone thought had been retired, politely fired. Suddenly he appeared again on the base.
Anytime you think you've got this place figured out, something else will come up and around the corner that you weren't expecting. I had been assured by the DG, I had been assured by people at Provincial that that guy was going to be gone and I wasn't going to have to worry about him and that he was going to be prosecuted for crimes against the people of this country, but he's still here. Although he looks a little bit more humbled than he was a few days ago, he's still here, and I don't know what I'm going to do about that. But he is away. He's out of the driver's seat for right now. Ghuli Khan's back, and that gives me hope. Because if you have people like Ghuli Khan, even though he's had a checkered past, he's no saint by any means. You saw it today. He's working with the sarin wall, and the guy that's sitting across the table from him right there, right now, that was one of the guys that was telling the sarin wall that I'm gonna, him and the CID officer were telling him, I'm gonna kill you if you come over here. I'm gonna kill you if you try and do these, if you try and prosecute people.
But how does it work when people have got very serious evidence stacked up against them, seem to somehow get back into positions of power?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, the case on that guy is pretty open shut, if you ask me. But apparently, somebody at MOI, apparently somebody at Provincial didn't think so. So he's back. I guess money talks.
So Ghuli Khan returns and brings this slight sense of cautious optimism. A few weeks after I left, he was fired for no apparent reason. He was replaced by an illiterate 24-year-old who the Marines were told had paid the right bribes to people in the government in Kabul. I came in a few nights after this to the little area where they sit down and have coffee, and he was just laying on his back with his eyes closed, and I thought he was asleep. He'd got a call and 4 kids had tried to pick up an old Chinese rocket, I think, right by the bazaar, and it had gone off. And
they all died?
Yeah, the 4 died. And again, it wasn't reported anywhere. I didn't read about it anywhere. Yeah. But he had to go and pick up the kids.
How many Marines do you think there are, like Major Stuber, that are torn like that know the truth?
I mean, that's a big thing that no one's talking about, is you've got hundreds of thousands coming back and hearing these statements, knowing it's utter bullshit, and I'm sure are coming back to all kinds of psychological problems and seriously demoralised. At least 4 guys I've met in Afghanistan have committed suicide since they got back.
Wow.
I really expected to have some problems with some of the guys that I was with. Not one so far has said, you're cynical, you're pessimistic. They've all said, yeah, we all know that the game is up. That's all you hear now is it's a success because 75, 80, 90% of the country is now in the hands of the Afghan security forces. Let's not talk about what those security forces are like. Let's not talk about their behaviour. The fact they're in the lead and we're coming home is success. Yeah. I mean, Taliban attacks are up, civilian casualties are up, fatalities for the Afghan soldiers and police are up. 310 a month is the latest estimate, every month. If that's not civil war already, I don't know what is. And you get the impression these guys aren't going to last either. I mean, certainly when they're on their own, they're not going to last. I mean, I spoke to a few Afghan friends who come from here and said, what do you think is going to happen to these guys after we really leave? He said half will join the Taliban, the other half will just vanish. A lot of people are saying that it hasn't worked the way we wanted to in Afghanistan, but they're blaming it on the Afghans. Oh, they always fight each other. Oh, it's just tribal rivalries, I don't think that's true at all. I think there was a chance we could have got it right, but we put the worst people straight back into power after the bombing campaign and because of the rush to get to Iraq. And it's our fault that it hasn't worked out now.